Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, May 29th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 94 days, the game against Michigan in 185 days, Memorial Day in the rear view mirror, which means it's now sort of the unofficial start to summer in the United States. And once it's summer in the United States, and we're, close enough, it's time to start looking forward to the upcoming college football season. It's practically here, less than 100 days away for the Buckeyes. And today we're going to start by looking at the toughest quarterbacks on Ohio State's schedule. Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com just did a really interesting post ranking the top quarterbacks on Ohio State's schedule this fall, a list that I'm sure everyone is going to agree with 100%. No arguments anywhere. Tony has done this in a very scientific method, so we're going to go through that list with you today. Tony, the first quarterback on Ohio State's toughest quarterbacks list for 2024 played his bowl last year at Oklahoma in the Big 12. He's in a different conference. His former team's in a different conference. His new team's in a different conference. So, really, as everyone would have expected, Oklahoma quarterback Dillon Gabriel of the Big 12. Oklahoma's in the SEC. He's now at Oregon. Oregon's in the Big 10. Sure, why not? However, he has been a college football quarterback for quite a while. He has piled up an incredible amount of career stats. 8th in the career passing yardage mark in NCAA history. Probably be 4th all-time in career passing yards by the time the Ohio State game rolls around. Needs just 2,208 yards to pass Timmy Chang for the second most all-time behind Case Keenum. This is, Tony, I think safe to say, Oregon has successfully replaced veteran quarterback Bo Nix with veteran quarterback Dillon Gabriel.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at what Dillon Gabriel has been able to do in his career at both UCF and Oklahoma, and he's won, he's produced, and he's been able to just step in seamlessly, which I think is maybe his best quality, because that's what Oregon is going to need from him with their national title hopes. But yeah, I mean, you look at his numbers, 5 years really as a starter, one of those 2021 hampered by an injury, but I believe an injury. But anyway, like 4 years of starting really, and has thrown 7 interceptions is the most he's had in a season, which is pretty incredible, because when you throw that much, you're bad things happen, passes get tipped. He's not a tall guy. Stuff can get batted up at the line of scrimmage. And for really 26 interceptions over his 4+ seasons is pretty impressive. But overall, those numbers, 3,000 yards passing in 4 seasons, like there's nobody within the same stratosphere of him in terms of the Big Ten rankings right now.
Yeah, he is pretty clear-cut number one to me as well. I think he is a quarterback who is potentially good enough to win you a national championship if the rest of the supporting cast is good enough. We'll see if it is at Oregon or not. But they're going to be in that conversation this year, and I think Dillon Gabriel will be a big part of that reason why. There are a lot of transfer quarterbacks on this list, but the number 2 guy, not a transfer. Lifelong Penn State quarterback Drew Aller. Feels like he's been there longer than he has. This is his 3rd year. And Drew Aller, I think it feels like everyone on Twitter probably saw the sort of selectively cut video from the spring game where he looked like he'd never played football before. And, there was a bunch of context that needed to be provided for that video, such as the wind was going about 30 miles an hour. And also he did complete passes that just weren't included in that particular highlight video. He's someone who, we haven't seen it from him yet. We haven't seen the whole package from him yet. The potential is certainly there. There's some question, too, about the supporting cast, and what is the supporting cast good enough to let him get to what his ceiling could be. But if he does, the ceiling there is pretty high.
Yeah, everybody likes the potential, and when he's the number 2 guy on this list of quarterbacks that Ohio State will play this year, people are immediately like, this is a questionable list. This list is crazy, but trust me, when we continue on, you'll see, like, Drew Aller, I think, right now is a safe number 2 based on the histories of everybody else. But 25 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions last year. Like, you can't really fault that. You can't complain about that. But it was the conservative nature of his throws that frustrated a lot of people. But if you don't have receivers that can get open downfield, or at least get downfield, you're going to have to throw some guys open. Maybe he didn't do enough of that. But against Michigan and Ohio State last year, he was a combined 28 of 65 passing for 260 yards. And so those were his worst 2 outings, which they should be. but I think he gets judged on that. But that's also what quarterbacks do. You get judged on some of on how you do against the toughest guys. I do think if you're going to throw short as much as he does, you need to complete more than 60% of your passes, though.
Yeah, for sure. You can work short and move the ball 5-6 yards through the air, but you got to complete 70-75% of those. That the whole point of the short passing game is it's the run game through the air. You have to complete the handoffs in order for the run game to work, even if it is the run game through the air. Next up, this is the one where I kind of did that number 3 on the list, Hudson Card of Purdue. Now, this is a little bit of a collar tug for a couple reasons. One is you think the supporting cast at Penn State's not great. Oh boy, brother, let me tell you about Purdue's offense, what that might be this year. But also, Hudson Card started his career at Texas and has just sort of been like, he's been okay. He's fine, but he's not, he's not anyone who you're going to be seeing on the Davey O'Brien finalist lists almost certainly. So, this is the one, Tony, where I kind of went, oh boy, and it gets worse from here, you say.
Now, there are some arguments for other guys that could be here, but Hudson Card has played big time football and a little bit, started for a year at Purdue, started a couple of games at Texas, has been exposed to that. The consistency has not been there. I expected more explosion from him, like as a runner than we've seen. And really he's, rushed for 200 yards last year, but wasn't as effective as I thought he would be in that offense. And really, like you said, not a lot of effectiveness in that offense. So number 3, but really from like 3 to 8, they're all kind of almost the same player.
They are. There are, and this is, that can be good in some ways in that the guys towards the bottom could end up being better than expected. There's a lot of potential on this list. Hudson Card is kind of at the point where you feel like you kind of know what he is at that point, and it's okay. The floor is higher than it is with a lot of these guys, but the ceiling's probably a little lower. One guy where that is not the case is the 4th guy on your list, Aiden Childs. Transferred from Oregon State to Michigan State following Jonathan Smith, his head coach, making that same move. And this, Tony, he was ranked as the number 1 quarterback in the transfer portal by 247, but that is entirely potential because there's not a lot of track record to go on here. He could be great. He could be, potentially the number 1, number 2 player on this list at some point, but it's all potential right now. And this is another one where who's he throwing to?
Well, yeah. And this is all potential and just the amount of expectations and excitement that people have in the area for him. He started right away as the number 1 quarterback as soon as he got to Michigan State. So, just the way, when a head coach brings somebody over with him and Jonathan Smith comes over from Oregon State, brings Childs with him, sort of, all on the up and up. But people are really excited about him. He's a dual threat guy. So I think some of this is also, we know the kind of the problems that those guys can cause in the Big Ten, but we're comparing them to how they would do it against Ohio State. So, maybe we shouldn't, I guess this is my list. Maybe I shouldn't do the rankings based on how they will be a problem for everybody else, but I think there's a lot of excitement here, and really it's tough to find some excitement in the Big Ten quarterbacks and the quarterbacks that Ohio State's going to be playing. So, that one won out, hype and excitement, but also the potential is definitely there. Does he have somebody to throw to? We'll see. If they can get like redshirt sophomore Brian Lewerke out of him, to drop a legendary name, maybe they've got something there.
Boy, if you can fill the shoes of Brian Lewerke, well, friends, you are living your best life. Next up, this is a name that Ohio State fans are going to be pretty familiar with, and someone we've been talking about on the Michigan Monday show for a number of years as well. We'll see what kind of a role he has, and the role this year is presumptive starter. It feels like that might be because they didn't land anyone through the portal, but it is Alex Orji time at Michigan, and there are two ways to look at Alex Orji's potential at Michigan. One is 2 carries for 22 yards against Ohio State in that drive in the third quarter that really helped Michigan regain the upper hand. And boy, if If he could just average 11 yards a carry, Tony, in every game, boy, they will really have something there running the offense through him. Here's the other thing. He's played at Michigan for 2 years. He's played in 9 games. He has thrown 1 pass. Now, he has never had an incomplete pass in his career, so that's something. But he's thrown 1 pass in 2 years, and this is now your presumptive starting quarterback. No disrespect to Alex Orji. This feels like something significantly short of a sure thing for Sherrone Moore and the Wolverines.
Yeah, and this is also an assumption that they will find the best ways to utilize him, which they've done in the past with J.J. McCarthy, and basically they'll protect him in some ways, but you can only protect him so much. So I think there's potential there, but we just don't know enough about him to put him higher. And he's here based on the fact that if you're good enough to start at Michigan, you're probably good enough to be 5th on this list, And when you look at the rest of the list, and I know, Tom, you're going to have an incredible issue with the next one, and we can spend some time on that one. But 5th on this list based on the fact that he's going to be Michigan's starting quarterback. They're going to utilize him. He's going to create issues with the running game. Michigan loves to run the ball. So it could be like a JT Barrett type of situation where you just can't get off the field against the guy.
Yeah, this is very much it depends what they want the offense to be kind of year. Because if they're trying to force him to be a pocket passer, that's probably not going to work. If they're going to utilize his legs and he can stay healthy, and those are 2 big questions, then this might work real well. The next guy on the list is another guy who, boy, if you can utilize his legs and he can stay healthy, it can be a pretty good season. My wife's alma mater is Ohio University, so I have watched a good bit of Ohio Bobcats football over the years, and Curtis Rourke has been a very effective, exciting player when he's been healthy. When he runs, sometimes he gets hit very, very hard. That happened in, for example, the San Diego State game to open last year. He got hit and knocked approximately down to Tijuana, and then they didn't look so good after he left the game. Can you keep him healthy and on the field? Well, behind an Indiana offensive line? Maybe. We'll see. We will get to find out this fall. He is a really exciting player. If the Rourke name sounds familiar, his older brother also was a quarterback at Ohio University and is now, I believe, playing in the CFL. They are Canadian, so his nickname is Air Canada. And this could be really exciting at Indiana. This also might be, well, what does the offensive line look like? How much are you being asked to do, and can you stay healthy?
Yeah, with Kurt Cignetti coming over from James Madison with that offense, bringing over the 2 top running backs from James Madison with them. Can they get the running game going behind an offensive line? Can Curtis Rourke make plays through the air? Like, as I wrote in these rankings, he'd probably be higher if we were basing the rankings off of his 22 season, where he threw for 3,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, as opposed to last year, threw for 1,000 fewer yards, 11 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions while playing the same number of games. But like you said, injuries were an issue. And he can run. He can do a lot of things. If he can be like Kellen Lewis was at Indiana 17 years ago now, way back when, that would be, that's good enough to get them to a bowl game, regardless of almost who else is around him. The potential is very high. But I want to see, it's still a step up from Ohio to Indiana because it's a step up in competition that you're playing against.
For sure. And I think you're seeing that a little bit with Will Kazmarek, the tight end who went from Ohio to Ohio State and was a real difference maker at Ohio University, and then now is sort of working his way up the depth chart at Ohio State. It is a different level of the sport. Earlier, Tony said if you're good enough to be a starting quarterback at Michigan, you're good enough to be number 5 on this list. Tony's a liar, because next up is Cade McNamara, former Michigan starting quarterback, now the starting quarterback at Iowa. You have him 7th. By the way, we're only going 8 deep on this, because that was the point at which I was like, I have nothing interesting to say about anything, and I'm sure you have nothing interesting to say about anyone below this level as well. So we're going 8 deep here. Tony, tell me about Cade McNamara freed from the shackles of Brian Ferentz.
Well, I mean, you make fun of the list and all of these things, Tom, disrespect me while you're doing it. He is the only guy on this list that has taken his team to the college football playoffs. So that moves him up from like 11 to 7. So thank you very much. But yes, freed from the shackles of Brian Ferentz, now free to hand the ball off to somebody else even more. And maybe run to the line and snap it sooner than that. But he's a guy that you know exactly what he is, and it's not great. It's not very good. It's okay. It's Iowa hot, if we're, it's, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, honestly, that's the best description I can give you for Cade McNamara as Iowa's quarterback. It is what it is. You know exactly what you're going to get, which is exactly what Kirk Ferentz wants. I just want consistency. I want the same eggs every day. I want the same toast. I want the same butter. Just make it everything the same, so I know what to expect and I can deal with it. It's when you got a quarterback that is throwing interceptions to all these different people, and you're like, I can't handle that. Just keep the ball, and let's just let us punt, and we'll go from there.
Iowa's offense, the consistency of Iowa's quarterback play being like Nick Saban ordering a turkey salad for lunch every day just so he doesn't have to think about it and doesn't have to worry about it. Like, that's Iowa offense as the turkey salad of college football. Boy, feels a little disrespectful to turkey salad, but we'll see. We will see what the 2024 season brings for Cade McNamara and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Last up on this list, the reason we're going to 8 is because 8th, you have a true freshman. That is Dylan Raiola, the quarterback at Nebraska. Not a guarantee that he will be a starter day one. Ohio State fans, of course, are familiar with that name because he was a former Ohio State commit, and then he was a former Georgia commit, and now he is a Nebraska signee. Could be Nebraska's quarterback this year. This is about as big a spectrum of could be a disaster to could be a tremendous success of anyone on this list. Everyone else on this list feels like the floor is probably a little higher. The ceiling is potentially a little lower. This could go just about any way possible. I feel like I'm weighting the mid to bottom half of that a little bit just because of true freshman quarterback. But, I don't think he's going to be the 8th best quarterback on this list at the end of the season. I think he could either be the 4th or he could be the 14th.
Yeah, well, and as I wrote here, it's kind of a safe hedge to put him here because the potential is there, but he's a true freshman. And as I also said, he could, this is the 7th game of the season. So by that point, he could have finally gotten the starting job from Harrison, from Harburg, or lost it, so you don't even know if he's going to be in the game at that point, because he could start the season and play like a freshman and lose the job to Heinrich Harburg, or he can, wait in the wings and then steal it. So, you look at the rest of the list, and like I said, we don't need to get into it, but I don't expect him to light Ohio State up by any means, and I don't expect many of these guys to do that, or any of them. But I'd like to see him do well. I'd like to see Nebraska have something. So this is my contribution to the well wishing, I guess.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because this feels like they maybe have turned the corner there, maybe under Matt Rule, and that probably means bowl-ish, 7 wins, maybe could be 8 wins. If Dylan Raiola really takes that next step, maybe it's a 9-win team. We'll see. It is going to be a fascinating year in Lincoln. I do want to, I think, correct myself. I believe earlier I said that Aiden Childs was the number 1 quarterback rated in the transfer portal. That was actually Julian Sayin, rated number 1. Childs is rated number 2. Just want to get that on the record in case I did say that incorrectly earlier. That will do it for today's show. Going to be plenty of, the Big Ten quarterback play might not be that exciting, but there's going to be plenty of exciting stuff happening this fall all around Columbus with the Buckeyes heading into a very, very exciting season. We are actually heading into camp season in about a week. Ohio State summer camp start. That's always a great chance to see a lot of future prospects all coming to Columbus. Big, busy recruiting visit time for the Buckeyes. Lots of exciting stuff happening around the Ohio State program. And a great place to be a part of all of it is at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus making you a smarter football fan. Also a very fun and active community on the Huddle Board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse. That's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.